Okay, so we're going to have a little look at the definition of speed and what speed actually means and how to calculate different speeds given different numbers and measurements. So we think of speed as being how fast something travels, but if we look a little bit closer at the units and the measurements for speed, it's all about traveling a certain distance in 1 unit of time. So what I mean by that is, if we have a look at an example, we could travel 25 miles in 1 hour. So traveling a certain distance in 1 unit of time, our unit of time being hours, and 1 unit of time for hours would be 1 hour. If I travel 25 miles in 1 hour, what that would mean is I am travelling at an average speed of 25 miles per hour. Notice how I use the word average in there. The reason why it's an average speed is when you're covering a certain distance, you may find yourself going a little bit slower at the start or a little bit faster at the start. You may change how quickly you move at different periods, but we're looking at what happens over the whole journey. So over the whole 25 miles, if I cover that in 1 hour, then I'm roughly traveling at 25 miles per hour over that particular distance. It's an average speed over that distance. Another example, let's say let's say something really small and really slow travelled 3 centimetres in 1 minute. So our unit of time here is minutes. 1 unit of time would be 1 minute, so 3 centimetres in 1 minute would indicate that whatever this very slow object is travelling at an average speed of 3 centimetres per minute. One more example. Let's say 2 metres is our distance, and that was covered in 1 second of time. Our unit of time here being seconds, 1 unit of time being 1 second. 2 metres in 1 second means we've travelled at an average speed of 2 metres per second. Now just have a quick look at how we've written some of these units here. So more often than not, we see the distance written in units, a slash meaning for every 1, and then min here or s here being our units for time. So 3 centimetres per every 1 minute, 2 metres per every 1 second. Miles per hour, this is the only one where you would see a little letter P in here. You wouldn't be marked down if you use like a slash in this case. We tend to use P instead of a slash because this M would be seen as representing miles rather than meters. So if you saw M/H, it would usually represent meters per hour, whereas a lowercase p after a letter M usually means that we're looking at miles. So in this case, miles per hour. So let's have a look at an example question as to how we could work out some stuff involving speed then. So let's say we have something that travels 8 centimetres in 2 seconds. 8 centimetres in 2 seconds. Well, remember, speed is about travelling a certain distance in 1 unit of time. We don't have 1 unit of time here, we have 2 units of time. We've got 2 seconds rather than 1 second. So what we need to do in this case is we need to turn these 2 seconds into 1 second. So 8 centimetres in 2 seconds. Well, how many centimetres would have been covered in 1 second? Well, to go from 2 seconds to 1 second, we simply need to halve the amount. So if I do the same with the distance, that means we've covered 4 centimetres in 1 second. Which means if we look at that as a speed using the correct units, we have a speed of 4 centimetres per second. Okay? What I would like you to have a go at now for me is task number 1. Have a go at filling in the gaps. Pause the video, and when you're ready to look at the answers, click play. Okay, so let's have a look at some of these answers then. So filling in the gaps. First question, travelling 20 metres in 2 seconds, very similar to the example previously. If I want to turn this into a speed, I need to turn it into a distance covered in 1 unit of time. So 20 metres in 2 seconds is how many metres in 1 second? Well, to go from 2 seconds to 1 second, we need to divide by 2. So if I do that for the distance, that means we've covered 10 metres in 1 second. And using the correct units for speed, we would have travelled an average speed of 10 metres per second. Having a look at part B. So 19 centimetres in 10 seconds. So how do I go from 10 seconds to 1 second? We need to divide by 10. Hopefully can spot a nice consistent rule here. So we seem to be involving the number that we've got so far to convert it down to just a single unit in time. 10 seconds to 1 second, 10 divided by 10 gives us 1. We have to do the same to the distance then. You know, you may be tempted to use a calculator because you're dividing by a big number, but dividing by 10 means we're simply going to move our moves our digits along the place value column. So 19 divided by 10 will become 1.9. So 1.9 centimetres in 1 second means we have travelled an average speed of 1.9 centimetres per second. Part C, a little bit different this one. 24 metres in 30 seconds is how many metres in 1 minute? So we're actually going from seconds into minutes. 1 single minute. So how do I turn 30 seconds into 1 minute? Well, if I double 30 seconds, it would give me 60 seconds, and 60 seconds is the same as 1 minute. If we do the same with the distance, that means that in 1 minute we will have travelled 48 metres. So that would give us an average speed of 48 metres per minute. Part D, we need to turn 15 seconds into 1 minute this time. So how many lots of 15 seconds make 1 minute? That would be 4. If you look at a clock, 15 seconds would be a quarter of the way around the clock. So a quarter of the way around, times that by 4, that would take us all the way around the clock for a full minute. So that means we need to times 60 centimetres by 4. So that would give us 240. So that gives us an average speed of 240 centimetres per minute. And finally for E, we're looking at 20 miles in 4 hours. So we want to turn 4 hours into 1 hour. So we're going to divide by 4. You could always use a bus stop or something like that. So we need to do 20 miles divided by 4. Working that out, that gives us 5 miles in 1 hour. So that means we have an average speed of 5 miles per hour. And if you scored very well, you can reward yourself with an ice cream if, like me, you have an ice cream van outside. Okay, moving on to the next part. Suppose I travelled 30 kilometres in 25 minutes. What was my average speed in kilometres per hour? So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to just set this out in a very similar format to before. So 30 kilometres in 25 minutes. And I want to turn that into an average speed in kilometres per hour. So my unit of time needs to be hours. Now we have minutes here, but unlike the last problem, trying to turn 25 minutes into hours, that's not an easy thing. That's not an easy number to simply times by. So what we're going to do, we're going to remember that we've been turning our value of time into a single digit of 1. So what we're going to do here, our 25 minutes, we're going to turn this into 1 minute. Just like with all the other problems we're doing, we're going to turn it to one single unit of time. And we're going to work out how many kilometers that would be. So to turn 25 minutes into 1 minute, that is going to require us to divide by 25. Any number divided by itself will give us 1. So I need to do 30 divided by 25. Now, a bit of a tricky division, but for the next task and for this question, we are going to be allowed to use calculators. So I'm going to do 30 kilometers divided by 25. So 30 divided by 25. You may get a fraction come up immediately, so just remember to press the SD button if need be. So that gives us a result of 1.2. So 1.2 kilometers in 1 minute. Now we're not quite done though, because we are asked for average speed in kilometers per hour. The unit of time has to be hours. So I don't want 1 minute, I want 1 hour. So that's what I really want. But can you come up with suggestions as to how we can go from 1 minute to 1 hour? So how many single minutes are required to make 1 hour? The answer is 60. So what we're going to do now, so 2 steps of this problem, we're now going to times our 1 minute by 60 to turn it into 1 hour. So this now matches the unit of time we needed for our speed for a final answer. So our 1.2 kilometers, we're now going to times by 60. So let's now put that into calculator. 1.2 times 60, and that gives us a result of 72. So 72 kilometers in 1 hour. So that means our average speed is 72 kilometers per hour. Okay, with that idea in mind, I would now like you to have a go at task 2. So you can use a calculator for these problems, just 3 questions. Take your time, think about the structure of the example, pause the video and have a go at working these 3 out. Okay, so let's now have a look at working through these answers in the same way as the example. So, for our first question, we have 9.6 kilometers in 12 minutes. We want our speed in kilometers per hour. So we've got minutes, we want to turn it into hours. 12 minutes, not a nice number. So what we can do is we can turn that into 1 minute first. So let's turn 12 minutes into 1 minute and work out how many kilometers would have passed in 1 minute. So to get from 12 minutes to 1 minute, all we need to do is divide by 12, which means we now have to do the same for our distance. So 9.6 divided by 12. It's come up as a fraction on my calculator, so I'm just going to press SD, and that gives us a result of 0.8. So 0.8 kilometers in 1 minute. Now we're going to turn that into 1 hour. So to turn 1 minute into 1 hour, we're going to times by 60 and do that to our distance of 0.8, and that gives us a result of 48 kilometers in 1 hour. So that gives us an average speed of 48 kilometers per hour. Well done if you got that first one correct. If you didn't, and you think you might have made a mistake on the next 2, then once again feel free to pause the video and have a little go in the next 2 with this working out in mind. Okay, Part B, 150 meters in 4 minutes. We want our answer in meters per second. So what we can do first, let's turn these 4 minutes into 1 minute. So how do I go from 4 minutes to 1 minute? We can divide by 4. If we do the same with 150, you might not need a calculator for that, but I'm just going to make sure I get this answer right. If it is a calculator problem or a calculator exam paper, always best to just use a calculator just to play it safe. So I've got a fraction, I'm going to press the SD button, and I've got an answer of 37.5. So 37.5 meters in 1 minute. I don't want 1 minute though. I want seconds. I want 1 second. So I'm now going to turn my 1 minute into 1 second. So I know that there's 60 seconds in a minute. So to go from 1 minute, which is 60 seconds, into just 1 second, I need to divide by 60. It's the exact opposite of going from 1 second to 1 minute. If I times 1 second by 60, it would take me to 60 seconds, which is a minute. So to go the reverse way round, to go from 1 minute to 1 second, we have to divide by 60. We're now going to do the same with 37.5. So 37.5, I'm now going to divide that by 60. And that's given me a result of 0.625. So 0.625 meters in 1 second. So my average speed in meters per second, 0.625. Finally, the last problem, 12 centimeters in 1.6 seconds. We want meters per minute. Okay, so for this one, once again, we're going to turn seconds into minutes, 1.6 seconds. We want to turn that into 1 second first. So how many centimeters in 1 second have occurred? So how do I go from 1.6 to 1? We're going to be dividing, but what are we going to divide by? Well, each time I've wanted to go from a number down to 1, I've always been dividing by the number itself, and that does not change here. If we divide 1.6 by 1.6, any number divided by itself will give us 1. So that is the rule I'm going to use for this problem. So 12 centimeters divided by 1.6 gives us a result of 7.5. So I'm going to fill that in, 7.5 centimeters in 1 second. We want a minute though, so we're going to bump that 1 second up to 1 minute. How are we going to do that? How do we turn 1 second into 1 minute? Well, 60 seconds make a minute, so 1 second times 60 makes 1 minute. Exactly what we're saying up here, but obviously up here we're going in reverse from minutes to seconds. Here we're going from 1 second to 1 minute. So 1 second to 1 minute times 60, so that's going to be the rule I'm going to use for 7.5 centimeters. So let's times that by 60. And that gives us 450 centimeters. Is that the final answer? It's not actually. 450 centimeters in 1 minute would be correct if I wanted an answer of centimeters per minute, but we want meters per minute. 450 centimeters, what is that in meters? Well, there's 100 centimeters in a meter. 4.5 meters is the same as 450 centimeters. So my final answer is going to be 4.5 meters per minute.